So this is a video to help you with the techniques very specific to Fitzroy, the pink land iguana. So this is a very unusual pattern, and it is actually, I think, probably my first optical illusion that I've ever tried within a crochet pattern. So despite it looking complicated in terms of its finish, it is actually very simple, because what you're doing is you're going to crochet these stripes separately like this. You're doing a simple colour change down the middle of the body, and then you're going to be sewing the stripes in contrast both underneath and then over the top. So it creates an overall effect of it being very stripy and a complicated colour change line, but it's actually very simple. So what I'm going to cover in this video is firstly how to put on this crest once you've finished. I'm going to also do the toes and legs, so you've got the theory on that, the finishing on the face, and then the sewing of these stripes. So you'll be able to get all the techniques that you need. So the actual crochet itself is relatively simple. It's the sewing up that's making it look complicated. So when you're crocheting the whole tail, body and head, this is what your piece will look like. And what I've done here is I've left an exceptionally long stitch marker in, because it's actually a brilliant example of showing you how much it spirals. So with this design, you're setting off from the tip of the tail here. So it'll be a bit fiddly when you begin in terms of not having many stitches on that round, but it obviously will get easier once you get out of there. And that is just how much that stitch marker, it tracks right round in multiple 360s by the time it gets back. Now in your pattern, I've also said to add a centralizer marker in there, and that's just going to help you absolutely identify the bottom, especially when it comes to working this crest, because what we're going to do is work the crest on before we actually then put the stuffing in. So make that whole piece in one piece like that before you do any stuffing. Now the original is in pink and charcoal, and I've actually made this one in peony and charcoal, so again in the pink spectrum, but not as bold as the original pink one. So your centralizer marks the bottom of your body. So what you need to do is fold it flat with the centralizer at the bottom edge. And what we're going to do is actually then work the crest on this other side. So you really want to fold it flat on the table like that. And what we want to do is do a line of slip stitches from here, so in the back of the neck, across towards that colour change line like that. So what you need to do is get your remaining peony yarn, put your hook in like that, so 2 down. Now if you want to be very specific, you can count 10 out for us. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Good, I managed to do that without doing it, but count 10 from that colour change line backwards like that. And then what you want to do is actually be slip stitching right the way through both sides of the fabric. So go in and slip stitch, in and slip stitch, and come right the way across like that. Like that. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 like that. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to put the spikes across the top like that. So once you've worked your slips and you're at your colour change line, turn yours around, and what we're now going to do is work these spikes that come back down along the top. So chain your longest one first, and then come back down that chain. And then slip stitch into the top of the crest like that. So you're not going to be going into your DCs that are down there, just slip stitch into the top like that. Like that. So you've got your 5 spikes in place along the top edge of that neck. Then break your yarn and we'll sew those ends in afterwards. Now it's time to add some stuffing. Just to note, not that it is absolutely essential, but as a left-handed person, just remember that you'd be going the other way around. So again, start at the neck. It just means that you'll be going down and then up, and effectively your spikes will face the other way, but not an issue at all in terms of the design. Just bear that in mind. Always start at the neck and move towards the colour change line, rather than thinking that you need to reverse that the other way around. Otherwise, what you'll find is your spikes will be in reverse order in terms of tallness. So now it is time to stuff the whole piece. You no longer need your stitch marker, so you can remove that altogether. So obviously use the heel of your hook to push the stuffing in, and then use the tip of the hook just to make sure you pull that down into the body. If you wanted to add wire, this would be a great design to add wire to. If you were somebody that's not making these for children, that's making them for display, it would be a great one to add modelling wire into, so you can position it on a shelf. Right, so once you're happy you've got enough stuffing in, it's time to actually add on the legs. But before I do that, I'm going to just seal the head off and sew in that end so it stays nice and tidy here. Right, so spikes in place, let's do the legs. So you'll have made your legs, and what we're going to do is something unusual. We're going to sew the legs on before we do the final toes. And that's just because what I've done with the legs is I've made sure that the claws effectively, so on the end of here, are all wrong side upwards so that they curve downwards. And then this, effectively the index finger, so the second in is a longer toe on all of them. So to do this is often easier, and to get the flattest finish on this style of feet, it's often easier to break yarn and then do it all in one go afterwards. So you will have stuffed this central part when you've been making them, and we're just going to put a bit more stuffing in the ends. So you've stuffed that bit before you've closed it off. Right, now in terms of sewing them on, you've got two definite front legs, which are your ones that have got the pink on them, and then your back legs are your charcoal ones that are charcoal only. So let's sew the front ones on first. So what you need to do is get your lizard, and at this point, obviously quite clearly, your centralizer is on the bottom and your frill is on the top like that. So your crest is up on the top. The head shape curves upwards like that. And what we're going to do is sew the tops perpendicular to the fold in your leg. And this is why I've also left the curves till last, because it will mean that if you've got a slight twist in your legs, you'll be able to straighten them all out at this stage. So what you need to do is your fold so this is where you closed it off by double crocheting through it all and then reopening it there. What you need to do is sew the top of the leg, so the peony piece, perpendicular to that angle. So that's moving that way. That means we're going to be sewing the top at this angle like this. So I'm pinching it the other way around, so it becomes a little triangle effectively like that, and sewing across that before I'm going to put it into position. But I'm going to leave my end on because I'm going to use that to sew it onto the body. Now, what I'm going to do at the bottom here as well to make life easy is I'm actually going to fold it flat in line with the bottom piece. So this one's perpendicular to, but here I'm folding that bottom bit flat. So you've got your two angles where you close them off and reopen them. Fold that flat. And if you find that yours is a little bit twisted there, don't be scared of not necessarily sewing that in across the end, if you see what I mean. Make it as flat as you can. So fold that to that to that, and then you can actually sew in that end, because we're going to be working the claws directly on. So if you find that you need to correct a twist slightly with a couple of stitches, all you need to do is sew in the end like that. It means that you can still come back and work your claws flat. So what you should have is that perpendicular angle at the top and then a flat base on the bottom, of which we're going to sew the claws on afterwards. So perpendicular on the top and then flat on the bottom. And then I'm going to sew those into place on the iguana. Now I'm going to turn this upside down so that you can see the bottom, so you've got a nice reference point for the two going on. So that's it turned upside down. You've got your centralizer and your colour change line there. And then line that one up like that and sew it into position. So as with all legs, I'll sew down one side first and then I'll do the other side after that. just to give you not just the neatest finish, but also a very strong finish, should it be one that's about to get carried around by a limb. There we go. So that's one in. Then when it comes to putting the second one in, what I will always do is approximately put it in position first, like that, and then just turn and check from a few angles that I'm happy that that's even. So I'll look that it's even from that side. Track that round around. So where you've got the top of that one, track it across to there and make sure that that's going in on the same round. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to work the claws directly on, and this will make a difference whether you are right-handed or left-handed. So I'm going to do right-handed first, and then I'll come back to left-handed. So if you are right-handed, place your iguana down like this once you've got those two front legs sewn into position, and the one that you're going to work first will be this one on this side. So effectively the iguana's right front leg is the one that you're going to work first. And what you need to do is put a little bit of stuffing in there. You could always choose to sew that closed. If you find it hard to do what we're about to do next with the stuffing in, you could always sew it closed before you work the claws. But put your hook through the 2 stitches on the end on both sides like that. Slip stitch your yarn into place, and then we're going to work a short one first. So chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slip 2, and then half treble. And then all you need to do is go back in like that. So you're going in through the next set of stitches and then slip stitching one along. So we're closing it up, but we're working the claws at the same time, and then go on to your next one. So we want to always get the long one in position. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you're right-handed, you're going short first, and then you're going long on this one. Through the next one, slip stitch one along, medium, and then slip stitch in to complete the last one. So you've got 5 claws like that, short, medium, short, long, 2 mediums and a short. Now, if you are a left-handed person, because you are working left to right rather than right to left in order to get them wrong side facing, what you need to do is either work the opposite instruction on this leg. So if you want to start with the same leg as me, as in if you want to start with the front right iguana's leg, what you'll need to do is actually slip stitch in on the other side. And rather than going short, long, medium, medium, short, you'll actually do short, medium, medium, long, short. I know that sounds like I'm talking tongues. I promise you it will make sense once you get going. All you need to remember is the fact that with all of these claws, what you're trying to do is make them wrong side facing so they curve downwards and getting that longest one in. So moving on to the other one, if you are right-handed, what I'm then going to be doing is the other side. So what I've done is I've folded it flat. I'm going to put a little bit of stuffing in there. So that was my front leg 1. So now I'm going to do my front leg 2. Rejoin on my right hand side again because I'm right-handed. And at this time I'll be doing short, medium, medium, long, short. So just to clarify once again, if you are a left-handed person, you'd then be doing this one next. Because you're working left to right, you would be doing the leg one pattern. So short, long, medium, medium, short. Right, I hope that makes sense of the legs. So the back legs, you follow exactly the same principle. Just make sure that you're getting stuffing into that bottom section. So you haven't got two joints in that one, you've just got one. So make sure you get stuffing into the bottom of that before you sew those in place. Exactly the same principle as the others in terms of putting those claws on. But now let's just talk about the stripes and then the finishing detail on the face. So what you're going to have made is all of these separate individual stripes to finish off this iguana. And this is what creates the optical illusion. And the reason why we put the crest in first is because it's going to be important to have that in when you sew these stripes either side. So what you will have made is in charcoal, you'll have made quite a few of these shorter ones like this, and these are going to be sewn in place either side of the crest at the top. But what we want to do is use our colour line as our guide. So where you've got your colour change line here, count 1, 2, 3 clear rounds. Do you see how you can see 1, 2, 3 clear rounds? And then what you want to do is sew this into place like that around the body, leaving those clear 3 lines like that. Then what you'll do is leave 1, 2, 3 again, and then you'll sew this one at the top covering them. Now, when it comes to crocheting these stripes, you will have a definite right side and wrong side. I'll just show you that on the peony because it's easier to see. So do you see, this side is your right side and this side is your wrong side. I've chosen to sew them all on right side facing up. It really probably is personal preference. It doesn't matter which way round you do them. And the way, in fact, I'm going to do a peony so that you can see me sewing the stitches, because I'm going to do a peony first so you can see it. So I explained that principle of the fact they're going to go in either side. You're leaving 3. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of these long ones that goes across the bottom so that you can see it. So working on that principle that you are spreading out them by 3 rounds. If you need to compare which is which, don't worry about labelling them. You'll be able to see them by comparing the two like that. Your longest one is going to go around the middle. So you can remove your centralizer at this stage because you'll know you're in the right place. Then what I would do would be to fold this stripe in half so you know where the middle is. And that middle is going to be where that centralizer point was there. So you're going to put that and position it into the middle like that, leaving 3 rounds that you can see. Now, obviously you've got a colour change line on this first one. So there will be a slight step up like that in it when you put it into place. So bring this round. So you've got 3 rounds like that. You could always pin it if you wanted to. So you could put a pin in here so that that holds its position. And then what you're going to do is sew into the stripe right the way along the edge. And I find to get the neatest finish, what I'm going to do, I'm using my end that's already there, but you could obviously reattach yarn if you wanted to. And I'm going to be back stitching. So in, down, and then back by 1 stitch. And it is a little bit time consuming, but it's worth it. Like, this is going to give you a really neat finish. So don't rush this. Go right the way along, sewing into each stitch. If you need to rejoin yarn, you would just do that in your usual way, as securing one end and then rejoining with the other one to come down this other side. So with your longest one in place, now it's time to put your next longest one in. So exactly what we did before, fold it in half, keep it consistent whether you've done right side or wrong side facing to get the neatest finish. Fold it in half, put that along your central line at the bottom. Spread it out by about 3. Don't pull it too hard. What you want it to do is to end up leaving a nice gap with that other one. So you want to leave a gap like that. You've got your 3 rounds in between them. So now sew that round of stripe in place exactly the same as we did the other one. Then you'll finish it off by putting your other charcoal ones in high contrast either side of the crest. So I'm going to leave that one because I've shown you how to do that. Let me just show you how to put these ones in either side of the crest. So when it comes to doing these, to create the optical illusion, these ones basically form the basis of a stripe. So what you need to do is come right into where we created that crest, leave your gapping. Like that, so secure it at the top, lay it downwards onto the body, and then sew along that edge in the same way. And leaving reasonably long ends on your stripes is probably a good idea because then you won't have to rejoin yarn when you are doing the sewing up afterwards. So I nearly made it round that one. Just a few stitches to go in there. Right, so that's one half in, then do exactly the same thing with your other one on the other side. So just a couple more things to show you before I go away and finish this one. So you do have a couple of small ones on the legs. So you'll have a couple of short peony ones there on the legs. I've sewn them so that they're facing the front. So once you've got these back legs sewn into position, again in that perpendicular position like we did with the other one. So you'll be folding that at a right angle to the first one. You're going to put that in place and then you'll put your little ones on the front. You could choose to sew those on before you sew them in, but you might find it easier to put your legs on first, get your claws on and do your stripes at the end. So just to show you as a quick example, the mouth and the eyelids, so you've seen those as well. What I would say is sew your nostrils and your eyes in place first. And that way you'll find it easier to put these finishing touches on. So using your black thread, sew these in place first. And you might want to almost start from your nostrils. So pop your nostrils in first. And all I've done with those is I've only gone around one stitch. So they're nice and small. So I've put my nostrils in first like that. And then come back to do your eyes. And to give you exacts, because I know you enjoy it, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm 4 rounds clear, 1, 2, 3, 4, to put my eyes in place if you want to count them back like that. So I've got my nostrils in, that's my end. My nostrils are in there like that. Then sew your eyes in as normal. Now you don't need to put the eyelids in if you don't want to. I just think when I look at the pictures of these iguanas, it gave me much, I guess it helped capture the character of the animal a little bit more for me. So I'm into that one. Right, so my black eyes are in as standard. Keep referring back to your crest when you're doing those to make sure that you're equidistant from that as well on both sides. Just going to tuck that end in that you'd snip off at the end. So once you've got those in, what you're going to do is just work a couple of eyelids and then the mouth around the outside, which will just really help you capture that reptile style of face. So in terms of getting these eyelids in, all I'm going to do is slip stitch over here to the side of one eye. And then I'm just going to half treble in a bit of a line. So yarn around the hook to half treble, in and through. Three like that. And then you can sew that into position afterwards. So sew your ends in. And because I've done that on a diagonal, do you see how this is a diagonal here across the top of the eye? I'll reverse it on this side, so I'll go in the inside on this side. And again, to try and end up in line, third one in on that side. So that puts those in place, and all I do to finish those off is just tidy up the ends. And when you are tidying the ends, just remember to get them in line with the opposite one. And what I mean by that is I've sewn the end in there, so I'm going to make sure I'm on the same round for that. And again, I've sewn in here, so I'll make sure that I'm just sewing that end in over there, and that'll just hold those in a nice mirror to make the face nice and symmetrical with those two eyebrows in place like that. Now, I haven't made this one as grumpy looking as this one here. If you look at the two by comparison, you can actually see more of the black eye on this one to this one. So if you want to make that particularly grumpy face, play with bringing those eyebrows right down and over that face line. Right, now for the smile. All you need to do the smile is a line of slip stitches that comes right the way around the top through this central hole. So I'm going to start back in line with my eyebrow here. So in line with where my eyebrow started on that side, or my eyelid started on that side. And then I'm going to slip stitch up towards my central circle. So just slip stitch across your fabric. Now, as a right-handed person, I'm obviously going this way around. As a left-handed person, you'll be joining on the other side. So the base of the other eyelid and coming back the other way around. So just slip stitch right the way around like that, and you see you get a lovely line of stitches that just give you the impression of that big wide reptile mouth. So keep going until you get back round in line with your eyebrow at the other side, and then your iguana will be complete. So I hope that gives you all the techniques that you need in order for this one. If you are someone that's never created a jointed leg before, there is a separate video for that. So just go and find that. The frog legs are done exactly the same way, as are the gargoyles. So closing off around and then reopening around is the technique video that you'll need. There will be a link in your pattern. I hope you enjoy making Fitzroy, a very unique design. As I said at the beginning, my first optical illusion, and one that with these lovely jointed legs means that you really can position it very nicely in terms of it sitting up. The shape is intended that this head sits in an upright position, and you can fold those legs really nicely under the back of him when he sits up on your shelf. I hope you enjoy making him. Simple crochet really. It's all in that sewing up at the end to create those lovely high contrast stripes.